This is Shaw with Lady Takes the Mic. If you ever listened to my show before, you know I'm normally talking about women's issues. But as you can see, today I am 4 deep with men. This is actually going to be a very special show today. We're going to be honoring a gentleman who was actually murdered in our community earlier this week. And so I'm just going to start off by introducing the gentleman here with me today. We've got General Dugan with LA Can. We've got Sean Gregory also with LA Can. We've got Bobby Buck of The Bobby Buck Show. And we've got Pastor Q Jean-Marie with Church Without Walls. Gentlemen, I'll let you all tell us a little bit about yourselves and what you do. General Dogon, if you'll maybe lead us off as far as tell us a little bit about LA Can, what that stands for, and what you do.
Yeah, sure. Thank you, and I'm glad to be on the show today. My name is General Dogon. I'm born and raised on Skidrow. I'm presently a civil rights organizer with the Los Angeles Community Action Network here on Skid Row. LA Can is the name of it. And it was founded in 1999 by Skid Row residents.
And LA Can stands for?
The Los Angeles Community Action Network.
Okay.
And so it was founded in 1999 by 25 Skid Row residents. And basically it's a grassroots membership organization. And we've been here promoting housing rights for folks. One of our campaign, civil rights, teen food, and DWAC, which is the Downtown Women Action Coalition. And yeah.
Okay, cool. Sean, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. I'm on the Civil Rights Committee with LA Can and the Teen Food Committee.
Okay.
But I'm also an organizer on the Homeless Bill of Rights campaign.
Okay, cool. All right.
Right, and I'm also an act with the Los Angeles Poverty Department.
I do know that about you. Yes, I do. Pastor Q, I know you're with Church Without Walls, a street ministry here in Skid Row. You've been ministering in Skid Row for going on 9 years now, I understand?
Yes, almost. 9 years.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about your work here, and in light of the police killing that happened earlier this week, if you want to maybe start us off and, maybe let our audience know a little bit about the police killing and how that is pertinent to your work, your ministry here in Skid Row.
Well, first of all, again, I'm Pastor Q. I am a member of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, one of the organizers. Martin Luther King was the first president of that organization. Also, co-convener of the Black Jewish Justice Alliance, also part of the Black and Brown Clergy Coalition, and then, of course, the pastor of the Church Without Walls on Skid Row. And what happened in terms of Africa, I think it was divine intervention.
And Africa is a gentleman that was murdered on Sunday evening?
Absolutely.
He was killed?
And I believe his name signifies a lot, his nickname. And I believe where he was from, he was an immigrant, but he was from Africa, and he may have gotten here on his own. But we know the legacy of this country in terms of African people. And so it was significant that I believe, as a man of faith, I believe that it was for such a time as this, that this thing happens, because Skid Row, every once in a while, it elevates itself to the top of national media attention. It's generally not for something good, because they don't want to see the good that's going on down in Skid Row. Generally, they only promote the negativity, but I think this is going to shine light. And because of social media, you're going to hear both sides of the story, because we have citizens, journalists in the building.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was actually thinking that earlier myself, how symbolic the name Africa is, and that, given that Skid Row is predominantly an African-American community of males as well as females. And, and I personally also was thinking that, I think one reason why there was so much passion and everything moved behind, because it's like, what was like one thing is like, wow, this continues to happen. And then I think we all kind of symbolically felt like Africa could have been any one of us.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
Right. You any feedback? I mean, your feelings on that? Go ahead, whoever.
So, yeah, I have feedback. I mean, I agree that, Africa, the name says a lot by itself. Right. And I think that's why we created the motto, you can't kill Africa. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so...
that is a hashtag that was created this week, right? Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Mm-hmm. To kind of like show, that we all him. Right. You understand me? Right. And that, we ain't dying, we multiplying.
Yeah. Bobby, what's your feedback on it?
Well, like it's, I walk through, I see stuff like that, like with the police. It's like, it's idiotic. Like I keep saying, it's idiotic, the stuff that they do. It's like, it don't make sense. And for them just to shoot to kill innocent black and brown people for no reason, shoot to kill, not to maim and things like that. So with this happening, like say with it being, OG said, sometimes it's sad, but you got to laugh. So with the name being symbolic with Africa, it's a standing up for a meaning. Yeah,
and I think it's interesting that this happened on March 1st. Right on the heels of Black History Month. And Pastor Q, what's your feeling as far as, yesterday evening I came in after a very rushed day and after the march, and it was a very emotional day, and I turn on the TV as I'm getting dressed to go to a meeting, and I hear the news talk about that Africa was a convicted robber, and what do you feel about the media information that's come out since the murder?
Well, the reality is, if you're going to put out information, you have to put out the whole book. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? You got to come in the volume of the book. So definitely, Africa had a past. But if I was on deck, I would have said, well, should we judge LAPD by its past? Right? Should we judge LAPD by the Rampart scandal? You asked us not to judge you, but you're bringing the man's past into the equation when certainly he had done his time. And so are we a nation that really wants to have grace and mercy and second chances? Are we a nation of second chances? We always say that, but do we really believe that? Yeah. Right? And so the reality is, hey, he has a past. We all have a past. And really and truly, it's deeper than just him having a past. Right. The reality is that there's a criminal justice system in America that's biased.
Right, yeah.
So we can go down a whole rabbit trail talking about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I just thought, God, like, what does the fact that he was a convicted robber have to do with the fact that the man was sleeping in the tent and going back into his tent? I mean, I just didn't understand the parallel that the media, I felt that it was a sensationalism that they were trying to put out there rather than, and they said, when we were at LAPD yesterday, they said, don't rush to judgment, yet I get home and then there's a whole rush to judgment. It's like, how does that get out there? So what's your feeling, Jonah Delgon?
So, yeah, I agree with what Pastor Q is saying. It's historical for America is to discredit us,
Absolutely,
right? Yeah. And that's what that COINTEL program, used to do, and all the other programs.
What's a COINTEL? I don't know.
It was a program that was created by FBI, to target organizations and stuff. Like the Black Panther Party. It was founded to target and dismantle, disrupt the Black Panther Party, and so and that's part also the media, is to put these statements out there. So that they can discredit you, so they could, take away your support. You know what I'm saying? So they could justify the murder. You know what I'm saying? By people, put it in people's mind, oh, he ain't no good. He's a thug anyway. He had it coming. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, so, you're wasting your tears or something,
exactly.
Right? Yeah,
that's the way they do it. And then it's a way to, slip LAPD, out of there without, them, really being blamed. For, it's their fault. Anytime you stand there and you have a conversation with a man for 5 minutes, you understand me, and then, all hell break out, we got to say, that it was some bad training on the police part, you know what I'm saying? And so, and then it don't matter, like you say, what his past was. The fact of the matter is that these cops acted wrong. You know what I'm saying? I don't care if he was a Martian that just parachuted in from Mars, you know what I'm saying? And he just got out his spaceship, you know, and ran into LAPD, you know what I'm saying? They tased him, you know what I'm saying? And shot him up, you know what I'm saying? Then want to say, oh, he was a Martian, he was an immigrant, he wasn't from here nowhere, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So, you know, it's just, you know, just a bad case of, you know, how they just been treating us historically.
Right,
you know?
yeah. Speaking of that, you know, I'm going to humble myself right now and say that, you know, I talk a lot about men's issues or how men treat women living in Skid Row and so forth. But, you know, and I've heard historically a lot over time about how, you know, black women have it hard, black men have it really hard. I've heard a lot about that, you know, and I'm going to ask you all your feelings on that. But I'm going to say also for myself that I really had another level of compassion for you all this week because I don't know, it just really brought everything home to me. And I think it really, really hit me hard. So, what's y'all's feelings?
Well,
genocidal.
Mainly with the media, it's all manipulation. Just the bottom line with all of it, because they target use the media to target to put all the blame on us, even before we even do anything. Mm-hmm. And so, even like with the movies and all the other stuff, the commercials and stuff they do. So by the time it gets to everybody, all the masses, they look at us like that. So when something bad does happen, even if we didn't do it, we did do it in their eyes.
Yeah. Well, I think when you think about it from the perspective, being an ex-Virgin Records recording artist, understanding how people consume stuff, right? They say that watching a movie does not affect how you react and what you do, but they'll play a commercial, 30-second commercial, over and over and over again.
Yeah, that's subliminal.
So that they can get you to go buy something.
Yeah.
But they turn around and say it doesn't affect the way you act.
Right.
Now, the legacy of this country, you know, if you paint someone, that's what segregation was all about. If you paint them in a particular light, we never had control of the media.
Right.
They had control of the media. They got to give the commentary on who he was. Yeah. And so when we started doing hip hop, we started giving our own commentary.
Right.
And the white kids would go out and buy our record. And they're like, well, that ain't what mama said, and that ain't what daddy said. You know what I'm saying? So it began, hip hop accidentally educated our society about urban issues and, you know, and other things as well. But they want to paint a particular picture. That's why they called Michael Brown a thug. And so they couldn't find anything to call Tamar Rice. So they said, well, his death was his own, he caused his own death by pointing a toy gun at people. And we've been playing with toy guns forever in our community. But they wanted to blame that on him as well, and then later retracted. But they know once they get it out there, it's already out there, and subliminally it's in the mind. And it doesn't matter if you apologize, people still think it was his fault.
Yeah.
Well, you know, and that's funny because yesterday, I think most of us were at LAPD commission hearing, and there were some terms and some terminology that was thrown out there, and I think it really brought the audience more into an uproar, and I can't even remember some of the words that were said right now. Does anyone remember some of the stuff that was said that really kind of caused the audience to get in an uproar?
Yeah, I know they had a sister come in there from the police union, I believe, or protective league. And she came in there specifically, you know, they sent her in there.
Okay.
And to specifically, you know, address us because what she said didn't have nothing to do with the police commissioners and LAPD. Because her statement was, don't be in a rush to judge.
Okay.
Right. And so that's the same thing that the commissioners were saying, sobering off, you know what I mean, was saying. Don't be in a rush to judge.
Yeah.
But in her statement, she also said that don't grab, this is what happens when you grab the police gun. So, I mean, that statement right there is implying that they're already judging and that they already setting the table. This is the frame that they, you know, putting out there already to get people ready for this verdict when it come back. Oh, it was his fault. He grabbed the gun, you know, or was reaching for the gun, you know. And so, I mean, every shooting that happened on Skid Row, I mean, it's been a long process. O'Connell, who was murdered last May, right? We still waiting back on the results of that investigation. There haven't been no updates. You know, they refuse to give the community a response, you know, about what's going on. And so, yeah, it's a problem with that, you know.
You know, and it's funny for me as a single woman, you know, I appreciate living in a community of law and order. And yet, you know, I don't consider myself, you know, like someone like I believe in anarchy or anything, but I find that, you know, there's like these fine gray lines, and there's like this of like where, you know, drawing lines of, you know, of boundaries and so forth, as far as trying to be supportive of, you know, our you know, our police, of law enforcement, and then, you know, and then there's these things that continue to happen, and it's like, then so how do you like make sense of, you know, and when you're trying to rationalize and make sense of things, it's like how can you do that when these things continue to happen?
Well, we can make sense of it. I mean, the reality, again, you have to go back to square one. You have to go back to the beginning. Why was law enforcement put in place to begin with? At one time in the Constitution, the black person was 3/5 of a human being in order to call the vote, right? And then they were considered property. And so in order to protect the property, they put the police force in place to go and get runaway slaves. And so the police force has a legacy in this country of racism. And so that's why we keep saying it's a systematic issue. The system needs to be revamped. The system needs to be taken down and rebuilt, because the police force was only put in place to protect the property of the dominant culture.
Preach now.
Right? And so it's still protecting the property of the dominant culture. That's why in order for you to have a safe community, you move to Irvine. That's why I said those things. Or you move to Beverly Hills, or you move to Palos Verde. You moved an enclosed community so that whatever is happening on the outskirts does not really affect you and your family. That's why police officers don't live in Skidrow. That's why they don't live in South Central. That's why they don't live in Compton. But what we need to do is make sure that if you're going to police our community, you live in our community. And we'll see how things are changed.
Right. Now, that's an excellent point, and that's a great segment, because somebody actually did bring that up yesterday as far as police need to live. And I want to even take it a step further. I actually want to even say that I feel that, you know, we still need to bring in the segment, the layer about mental health services and their role in all of this, as well as the fact of people who come into this community to not only police us, but to offer us resources, services, you know, psychologists, psychiatrists, social workers, so on and so forth. Even oftentimes when they look like us, of the same, you know, I don't feel oftentimes that they understand how it is as a person living here, as a woman living here, as a black woman even living here. And so, you know, I was just recently thinking like, wow, I had an epiphany. I'm thinking, wow, you know, these SROs, they should have the psychologist, the psychiatrist, the social worker. You know, everybody should have to live amongst us, so then they understand more of us. And you know what I'm saying? I mean, anybody agree with that?
Yeah.
But they ain't what they want.
Right.
They don't want it to get better.
Right.
They don't want to. Main thing really needs to be done down there. The services, it's cool that they there. Like I stayed in the Union Rescue Commission. I stayed in the tea house and everything. But the services need to be upgraded and enhanced. They need to be done a whole lot better than what they're doing right there, down that way. But like I say, we can't wait on them. We got to start doing it ourselves.
Right.
And also, I'm going to say, you got to remember, too, that Skid Row was created as a containment zone.
Come on.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, to hold people. Okay. What society has classified as degenerates,
right.
You know, rejects.
Right.
You know, and what do you do to create this containment zone? You know, you give folks the missions that can give them food, housing, and clothing, right? And then you bring in all these cops, you know what I'm saying, to seal in that containment zone, right? Yeah. And basically that's what it is, you know, but that's why LA Can is so important, because LA Can comes into play to destroy that. Right. Because our motto is to help folks that's dealing with poverty create and discover opportunities that give them voice, power, and the decisions that directly affect them. Right. And so that's why we organizing. That's why we out there on the block talking to folks. You know, is let folks know this simple principle. Right. You know, and that there is a other side. We can rise up to the top. You know, I always tell people all the time, it's from the bottom to the top. Yeah. All right. And it's going to take us to liberate us because the system has failed us. All right. And so it's going to take us and organizations like LA Can, you know, understand me, to help black folks, you know, out of the situation that we in.
Right. Yeah. Now, you know what? Speaking of that, rising up to the top and empowering, you know, sometimes I feel like there's still that Howard Griffith, speaking of subliminal messages, that subliminal message of know your place, know your place. Y'all know what I'm talking about?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think Chief Beck said it best. If you listen to his interview after last night, I heard him on the news. He basically said these were a group of people, you know, just a group of people who are just angry, but the entire city don't feel that way. And I'm paraphrasing, so I don't have his words exactly right, but when you go back and check it out, what he's saying is, I'm not listening to them. What he's saying is Skid Row is irrelevant to him. That's what he's saying. Right. What he's saying is we're irrelevant because the people who came to headquarters were residents of Skid Row. Right. Were people who work in Skid Row, people who live in Skid Row, and people who worship in Skid Row. You know what I'm saying? And people who organize in Skid Row. So he's saying the grassroots organizations of Skid Row, he's saying he's not paying us any mind.
Well, gosh, you know, and we just had an election last night that completed, and our incumbent seems like he won kind of like by a landslide. So, you know, where does that leave us where we don't have officials who are, you know, I mean, how do we make them accountable? How do we hold them accountable?
So I think we hold them accountable by doing what we did last month when we hold a town hall meeting. Yeah. You know, that's a start. You know, how we, LA Can, we organized a town hall meeting at James Wood Center, and we, you know, demanded that our electeds be there. Right. You know, everybody from the mayor on to our city council member and everybody that played a role in this. Yeah. Right? And so we made Wazar come there. We made him sit there and listen. You know what I mean? What we want, not what you want to give us, because what you've been trying to do for us ain't been working. You got to listen to the voice of the people. You know, it's like the song say, got to give the people what they want, right? Not what you want. Right. And so that's what we got to do. We got to sit there and we got to lay out what we want, right? And we paying taxes too, so we got to make sure that just as much money as they putting on bringing back Broadway, they putting on bringing up San Julia, right? That's what we got to demand that they do, you know? Because if not, it ain't gonna get done. Right? It ain't gonna get done, right? Exactly. And so we gotta hold their feet to the fire and make them do something for us. But at the same time, we got to do for self, and that's what we do. I think, man, that's right on. Because King said, no Lincolnian Emancipation Proclamation can do this for us. No Johnsonian Civil Rights Bill can do this for us. So that was we talking years. You know, we've been saying this forever. So the reality is we have to build power. Okay, that's why we're trying to get Skid Row its own neighborhood council. You know, we got. That's where we have to start. We have to build power. We have to take power. We have to run our own candidates. Not only that, we've got to educate our people on the vote and why it's important to vote. You don't just vote just to put somebody in office and turn your back. You vote to put somebody in office so you can hold them accountable once you put them in office. Right on.
I heard that.
That's how LA Can and organizations like that is very important. Right. Because they'll call the meeting with what I did today in terms of wage theft. Los Angeles leads the nation in wage theft. We're the wage theft capital. I just came from a delegation to all the city council members. Right. They lead the nation in wage theft. In other words, they steal people's wages who are making minimum wage, so they're not really making minimum wage. Then they wonder why we got Skid Row. Come on now.
Right. Exactly.
So we got to hold them accountable, and that's how we hold them accountable.
Yeah. Now, before we move into closing out this segment, I just want to bring also into, speaking of holding accountable, how does the mental health system play into holding it all accountable? Who's got feedback on that?
Yeah, we got to hold DMH accountable. You know,
they don't seem to show up though. So how's that work?
That's the problem. So we got a couple of issues when it comes to folks on Skid Row with mental disability. The majority of the community, over like 75%, you know, is suffering from some type of physical or mental disability, right? And especially when it comes to policing, we got to address this issue. This is our number one top priority, you know, next to housing. And we continue to see 5150 incidents happen. We continue to see first responders being SWAT or the Safer Cities Initiative, task force. You know, you got police in jumpsuits, you know, responding to these scenes. And only thing that's doing is they end up escalating the situation, right? And so they have the SMART team that's stationed right there in Central Division, but they have not responded to not one 5150 call on Skidrow.
And what's their purpose?
So, according to them, their purpose is supposed to defuse situations, right? But now, you can't defuse a situation if you're not there. And so what they're doing is they allow the first responders to be the boots, you know, the billy clubs, you know what I mean? The 9mm is the first responders, right? And what end up happening is it results in the use of force. Right? So they expect the cops to go out there and get the people and then bring them back to the station, and then that's when they talk to them in the station. But it haven't been going that way. Like O'Connell, who was shot off a roof on 6th and San Pedro. He would still be living today if the SMART team would have responded instead of SWAT. Right, because you know when SWAT come out, they ain't coming to do no talking.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's only in the movies they come out and do talking.
Right. So what you want to say?
Yeah, well, this goes with mental health and housing. Because at that incident on Sunday, the patrol captain came out with his suit to address us. And I know General Dogon and General Jeff were questioning him. One of the first things he said was, we, LAPD, would love nothing more than to get all these homeless people into housing, which is hard to do because they're pulling in over half of the city budget. Half of the entire Los Angeles city budget goes to the LAPD. It's like 53%.
56.
Oh, 56. Well, yeah, it goes from like 53 to 56.
And then when you include the fire department, it goes up to like 70-something.
Right. So then tying that in with the mental health piece, what also came into being was he stated that the SMART teams are not available. Not that they show up anyways, but they're not even available 24 hours, 7 days a week because they don't have the manpower to do that. Which clearly all they have is manpower, and I think there needs
They just have it in a different place.
Right, exactly. And I think there needs to be some kind of citizen or community oversight as to looking at their entire budget. We need to figure out how much money it would take to get 24 hours, 7 days a week SMART teams in place and see to it that happens. That needs to really be another one of our next steps in the overall picture.
And then another next step, too, is LASA, and I'm going to say it, LASA, the Los Angeles Homeless Services Authority, and downtown mental health need to get off their butt and take it to the streets. They need to get out there and identify folks, you know, who need their help. They haven't been doing that. They're getting out of there with these youngsters or these old folks, and half of them don't know the community. Exactly.
They on a 9 to 5 clock.
But still though, I mean, we want folks that ain't scared to come and talk to people. You know, they ain't scared to come and touch people. You know what I mean? That ain't scared to sit down and spend some time. You know what I'm saying? I mean, and we don't have that. You know, and then a lot of the times when they do come out, they're escorted by the police. So how you expect for people to talk to you?
Right.
So they need a new program. Right, and I told them before, I'm willing to help them. You know what I'm saying? Lay that out. That's what they need.
The General Dogon program. They need
That's
the
what the
General
general
Dogon
is
program.
about, making sure the job gets done.
Well, I think also to add to that, we as the Skid Row community, we've got to put more pressure on our city to build housing. Period.
Absolutely.
No, listen, we cannot take no for an answer.
Right.
We can't. We don't want you to give us the horse and pony show. We need housing.
Right.
You can build all these buildings that are going up in South Park, and you can't build stuff to house people. If you know you can't. You LAPD. Every time we ask them, they were like, "Well, we doing this and we doing that." I'm like, do we have enough housing? No. Well, deal with the housing.
Right.
Get people housing.
Right.
You know, and we need to, as a community, we need to organize and we need to power up and we need to get in their face and say, hey, build housing.
That's right.
Well,
period.
That's important that you bring that up, because I have heard, as someone who's in a mental health training program, I have heard mental health professionals say that the old model was it was recovery or recovery first and then housing. You know, they felt that, you know, you needed to be into a system of recovery and then housing. But they realize now that people need to be housed because that's the first line of recovery. So, and yet here we still, you know, we have, you know, elected officials who don't recognize and that we need more housing. So that leaves you where? How do we, before we end the segment, how do we hold them accountable as far as what's our next step? What is our next step?
Well, next step again is getting power, right? Mm-hmm. We build a city neighborhood council, but we also take delegations from Skidrow to City Hall. Mm-hmm. And if the mayor wouldn't get it done, Skidrow is basically a national tragedy. Mm-hmm. So we need to go to Washington. Yeah. I'm serious. We need to build a delegation and in terms of police brutality as well, because that's why we're doing the march on the 4th, right? In terms of brutality as well. We need to link up with Ferguson. We need to link up with whoever's doing stuff around the country, link up with Cleveland, grassroots organizations on the ground, Black Lives Matter, everybody, and go to Washington and let them know, hey, this is the civil rights movement. It ain't over yet,
right?
You know, and get them to deal with the issues.
Yeah. Well, maybe it would also be nice sometime if the president, when he's flying into, that he comes to our community. Maybe maybe we need to put that word out there too.
Well, we need to we need to go in his face so he can see it.
Right there.
Housing is a human right.
Exactly. Yeah.
When you look around the world, you see that here it is. We're in a modern age, 2015.
Yeah.
Right. There's not supposed to be people living on the streets.
Right. Yeah. That's just...
You know, when you look at the animal kingdom, you can't point to not one animal that's homeless. Oh. The rats in the ground got a house. The birds, they got penthouses. You know what I'm saying? We got the latest out, and they trying to put it off that folks are shelter resistant. They just don't want housing. That's a lie. You don't want to build it. Well, that's what it is. And then what we need to do, until there's housing for everybody, we need to create laws that allow people, you know, understand me, basic needs on the street. That's why we need the Homeless Bill of Rights. You know, the Homeless Bill of Rights, you know, understand me, that's what we need to allow people, you know, understand me, if they don't have a house, sleep in your car. You know, understand me, allow people to right to rest, right to serve food. Because the police is just moving people around from one city to another city, right? And people are not able to stay stabilized long enough to where they can get the services that they need, right? And it's just a bunch of wasted resources, you know? So housing is the number one fight, right? But until there's housing, we need to create little basic steps like the Homeless Bill of Rights, right? NSEI, which is a racist and selective initiative that only target poor folks, you know? And that's it.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to end it there. And before we sign off, I'm going to ask General Dogon if you can give us, few sound bites about what events that LA Los Angeles Community Action Network has coming up, your website address, and if you have a phone number that you want to throw out there.
Yeah. So sure. So we've been involved in this incident since the beginning. The incident that happened this weekend isn't the first shooting that we have responded to and brought justice to the victims. And so what we've been doing is we've been having meetings, we've been organizing rallies, protesters, we've been going to our elected officials, speaking out. We just left the police commission this Tuesday. And so what our next step is Friday night, we're having a ROC meeting, Residential Organizing Committee meeting. Okay. And we're gonna be bringing up this issue. Right, and we're gonna be talking about we're gonna debrief, you know, some of the things that we did since it started, and then we're gonna talk about some next steps. Okay. And so the address is 838 East 6th Street. The telephone number is 213-228-0024.
Say that again once more, a little slower.
So the address is 838 East 6th Street. Okay. It's 6th and Gladys.
6th and Gladys. Okay.
And our telephone number is 213-228-0024. And you can reach us at www.cangres.org. And that's Cangres spelled with a C, Cangres.
Okay. All right, great. And you have Monday meetings too, right? Don't you, son?
Yes, we have a civil rights meeting at 1:00 p.m., which we will be getting into the next steps we've discussed.
Okay.
So I encourage everyone to come out. But also, while we're fighting for more housing to be built, we're also fighting for the Homeless Bill of Rights. So we have a Homeless Bill of Rights coalition meeting this Saturday, 10:00 at LA Can.
Okay.
And I encourage whoever can come out to come on out to that as well.
Okay. Now, also, there's a march. Pastor Hughes, there's a march this coming Saturday as well?
Yeah.
What's that all about?
Well, this coming Saturday, I think it's at LAPD headquarters.
Yes, First and Main Street.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So then we have our Friday Night Rock meeting, which will start at 6. And that's going to be at LA Can on 6th and Gladys.
Yes.
And then we have Saturday morning, we have Housing Bill of Rights.
Homeless Bill
of Rights meeting, 10 a.m. also at LA Can.
Yes.
And then at noon, we then have the march coming up that's going to start at... Do you have any idea?
No, it's actually it's going to be at the LAPD headquarters, so it's not really a march, but I think it's a rally.
All right, so then we'll meet at LAPD headquarters at noon, and so that's going to finish off.
And then Monday.
And then Monday we have a housing. Every Monday, LA Can has housing meeting at 10:30 a.m. and then they have the civil rights meeting at 1 p.m.
Yes, correct.
Okay, all right. Anything else you gentlemen want to say before we sign off on this segment?
Yeah, we want folks to come and get involved.
That right there. That right there.
Yeah, we need people to stand
know
up.
that part,
it's that
right
time.
there.
You know,
Right.
Like the Panthers say, seize the time. Let's move.
Amen.
I know
heard
we
that.
just we got the bill. I believe it is SB 608. So we're going to need support letters signed on. So again, I would encourage to either call us at LA Can, ask for Sean or Eric,
Okay.
or you can I give my email?
Oh, please, go ahead.
Or you can hit me up on my email, which is SEANGREGORY88@gmail.com.
Okay. All right. And LA Can also has a Facebook page. What's the Facebook page?
It's LA space can, and then in what's that, parentheses?
Quotation.
It's not the quotations. It's the two curvy lines. It's the Los Angeles Community Action Network.
Yeah.
Right next
Okay.
to it.
Well, it's quotations. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Got you. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. All right. Very good. Very good. So you gentlemen are welcome to stay. We're going to move into the second segment. And then we're going to take a little break here as we move into the second segment. And but I want to thank you all for being on the show today.
Well, thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We'll do it again.
Always invite me back.
Absolutely.
We got something to say. Now that we got something to say, we got a lot of work to do.
Amen.
We ain't just talking about it, we being about it.
That's all right, sir. Thank you. right, folks, we are back for the last leg of our show here today. And we've got with us still in the studio, we have Bobby Buck of The Bobby Buck Show. And we still have Pastor Q. Jean-Marie of Church Without Walls, which is a street ministry here in the heart of Skid Row. Pastor Q, I'm going to ask you to tell us more about your ministry work here in Skid Row, your work in the community, and what kind of events that you have coming up here in the near future.
Absolutely. Our church is called the Church Without Walls. We've been in existence going on 9 years. In August, it'll be 9 years since we've been here. We call it the Church Without Walls because the scripture says that the greatest commandment is to love the Lord thy God with all your heart. And the second greatest commandment is to love your neighbor as yourself.
Amen.
And in order to do that, I felt like you had to get out on the streets. You had to get to know people. And you have to deal with them even in the midst of your difficulties and their difficulties.
Did you know about Skid Row prior to coming here to minister?
I lived right up the street in the financial district.
Okay.
So, so I would walk down here all the time.
Okay.
And I've been in Los Angeles since 1989, so definitely knew about Skid Row.
Awesome. So tell us about some of the other work that you do here in the community, because I know that you're also an activist as well for the human rights.
Yeah.
Human justice.
Yeah, do a lot of work in the community. I first got involved with a mentor of mine called Eugene Williams. He's since passed on. But we were involved in AB 109. And AB 109 was basically just an attempt to, the state was put on receivership by the federal government for overcrowding, prison overcrowding. And AB 109 is really a reentry program to get people back into society, ex-offenders back into society. And so we worked on that. We've worked on we worked on the Raise LA campaign with the unions, where we got about 3,500 people, a higher wage, hotel workers primarily.
Awesome.
A higher wage. So
that's a huge congrats.
Yeah, in 2000, I think in 2015, not 2015, in 2019, I believe, it's going to go up to 1535 or something.
Congratulations.
So it's going to go up incrementally. So we've done that, and that was actually what we worked on that for a couple of years, and that was actually what propelled the mayor to put out his proposal to raise the wage in Los Angeles. So now we're working on LA Raise the Wage, and that is the coalition to raise the minimum wage in the entire city of Los Angeles. They're trying to. The mayor wants 13, we want 15. We're going to keep pushing for 15 because studies have shown that in order to live in the city of Los Angeles, a single person has to make at least $15 an hour.
And you said you were at a meeting this morning regarding wage theft. What was that all about?
Well, wage theft is Los Angeles leads the nation. It is the wage theft capital. And employers find all kinds of different ways to basically steal wages from employees. They do it in terms of hours. If they're supposed to work a certain amount of hours, they may cut their hours. They may work. If you have to work from 9 to 5, they may tell you have to work from 9 to 5, but then at 5:30 you're still cleaning up.
Right.
You know, stuff like that. So they have all kinds of ways to steal wages. And people are making minimum wage, but they're not really making minimum wage because they're being cheated of their wages. And 83% of wage theft cases, they go unenforced. So as we're attempting to get the minimum wage raised, which we will, I don't believe we can lose. It's possible, but I don't see that happening. Right. But as we're attempting to get it raised, we want to make sure that wage enforcement we want to make sure we get wage enforcement with that. So they have to enforce the wages, and there are ways we can be creative in making sure that happens.
Right. You know, I think this is also pertinent to the fact of here in Skid Row, you've got so many, not just homeless people, but you have so many people living in poverty. The fact of, I'm sure there's a correlation between, poverty, wage theft, and mental health. What's your feeling on that?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's why we're involved in the work, not just in Skid Row. I love Skid Row, and that's what my heart is there. But it's not just in Skid Row. We have to really deal with the issue on a citywide level
and national,
and a state level as well, because a lot of people come to Skid Row from other communities.
That's right.
Right, and so we have to do that. And truth be told, in the African American community as well, we're always double the national average when it comes to unemployment and things like that. And to add insult to injury, we pay people minimum wage. And it's always, our country has a legacy. Again, we have to understand where it comes from, right? Because we are used to getting free or cheap labor. And our country has a legacy of doing that.
Right.
So it was cotton that built the economy of this nation, right? The way it is. If you don't believe me, read a book by Edward Baptiste called, it's basically talking about how the world economic system was built on slavery and sugarcane.
Okay.
And then you come to our nation in this time, we had minimum wage, but we would exploit undocumented immigrants and pay them under the table pay them a lower wage under the table. And that put conflict between African Americans and Latinos. So as part of the Black and Brown Clergy Coalition, I also work on the relationships there, because what they're doing is they're pitting us against each other while they're making billions of dollars. Right. And so I have to tell my brothers, I have to say, it's not the Latino person. I mean, that person's trying to make a living. They try. If you were living in a condition they were living in, you'd leave too. You know what I'm saying? But what we did was what the employers would do, they would hire them because they knew they couldn't do that to African Americans and others who knew the law in regards to wage, to the wage. And so they used that. And now the issue is, that's why when we're going to talk about the march we're doing on April 4th. But that's why unjust immigration laws are in that march, because what they're doing is they will do that, and then now they're saying, now that we're done using you, you can go back home.
Exactly. So I know you're also an organizer for SCLC, which is Southern Christian Leadership Academy, and Dr. King was the founder of SCLC, if I'm correct, and also was the president of the SCLC at the time of his assassination. So tell me how all of that work is relevant to the work that you're doing now, and then lead us into this march that you have coming up, please.
Well, SCLC is the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. It was started by a group of pastors, and they asked Dr. King to be the leader. So he was the first president. And the reason why that work is relevant, if you looked at the movie Selma, you saw the strategy of Dr. King and the SCLC. They were always working within the government, trying to move, not only march, but move policy as they were marching. The marches would put pressure, and they would move policy. Before King was assassinated, the day before, that's why I work with unions, the day before he was assassinated, or the week before, a couple of days before, he met with the sanitation workers of Memphis.
That's right, yes.
Right? So he was always working to get poor people a higher wage and get them fair wages. And so, and before he went to Washington, he met with Native Americans, Latino leaders, and they had come to an agreement that when they did the march that they were planning, that they would highlight the stories of Native Americans first, African Americans second, and Latinos third, to show the coalition between all three groups. And so he was working on that, and they were getting ready to go to Washington. And one of the things King said, if America really wants to make a change, that we have to first be serious about power. That means giving poor people power. And the second thing we have to be serious about is not just power, but economic power, but then we also have to be serious about political power. And so, and then he said, when we come to Washington, we come in to get a check. Because what he was talking about, he said, because our government was giving land grants to all its poor peasants from Europe, right? Undergirding them with the same type of what they do for businesses now. They give businesses incentives and undergirding them. And not only that, they would put them in schools to teach them how to plant and how to grow on that land, right? And he goes, but you're telling the black man to pull himself up by his own bootstrap. He goes, when we come to Washington, we come in to get a check. I believe that's why they killed him.
Okay. All right. All right. So this march that you have coming up on April 4th, it's pretty significant. It really brings things together. Can you explain more about the march?
The march is called, it's actually the 46th anniversary of the assassination of Dr. King.
Wow.
It's interesting because when we chose to do the march, and that's why I say we're living in such a time, an interesting time.
Yes.
When we chose to do the march, we knew we would do it on April 4th.
Okay.
What we found out later is April 4th is a Passover. That's the exact date of Passover. And we're dealing with police brutality in our community. And if you know the story of Passover, it was really about the blood of the lamb being shed so that the death angel would pass over the Jewish community. The death angel been camping out in our community. And so we're asking pastors and religious leaders to make a sacrifice on that day and come out of those buildings and come pray over our city so that the death angel would leave our communities.
Wow.
Right, but we didn't plan it that way. We were planning the march, and then we saw that. I was like, oh snap, that's crazy, right? For such a time of this, I'm not. I think I'm leading this, but I'm not really doing it, right?
Prophesizing.
So that's significant in terms of from a spiritual perspective. But from a natural perspective, the march kind of highlights the same issues that King was trying to bring it to Washington, and it was called the Poor People's Campaign. And so the thing the Poor People's Campaign was lifting up was again economic inequality, political power, and immigration, and those are some of the things. Because he was working with different groups and different coalitions in order to do this march. And they were moving from the civil rights to the civil rights.
Wow.
And so that was his whole strategy.
Okay, well, I got to check on time.
Deep.
Check on your time.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got just a couple more minutes here. Is there anything else that you want to tell us about the march?
Yeah, well, the march is, the march is April 4th. It begins at 3 p.m. We were going to start it on Broadway, but and go down to LAPD headquarters and in between City Hall and LAPD headquarters. But we're going to change the direction. We're going to change the route because we want to go through Skidrow in light of what has just happened.
Oh, that's excellent.
So we're going to do that. It begins at 3 p.m. At 6:05. At 6 o'clock, we're going to have the countdown to die-in. King was assassinated at 6:05. So at 6:05, we're going to do a die-in in the streets. We believe it's going to be significant. We have over 20 endorsers, organizations endorsing the march and growing. So, and all of a lot of leaders from the community, grassroots leaders, are going to be there. So it's going to be awesome.
While we still have a minute, I just want you to maybe throw out, I know you've got some planning committees that you're going to be needing some help. You're probably going to be needing resources and financial resources and backing to help with this and to get more publicity and everything out. Is there a phone number, email address, website, anything, Facebook page, anything, Twitter account, anything we can throw out?
Yeah, absolutely. My email, CUE@THEROWLA.com.
Say that again, please.
CUE@THEROWLA.com.
Okay.
That's my email. Hit me up there. And you can also go to info@THEROWLA.com. You can also go to that. But first email works.
Okay.
Just, yeah.
And if we want to invite anyone to your ministry, your Friday night ministry, tell us a little bit. Let's throw that out there as well.
Yeah, it happens on Wall in Winston in downtown Los Angeles at 7:30 p.m. every Friday night.
Okay. All right. Great. All right, then. Anything else, Bobby? Did you have anything else you want to throw out, Pastor Q?
That's it. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll be plugging the march coming up over the next couple of weeks, over the next few weeks, and we'll be plugging it a little bit more. But we just wanted to put all of that out there. We want to invite you all to help and assist with Pastor Q with the Church Without Walls. I know you also are looking to build your own church family home here in Skidrow. So if there's anyone who would like to, assist with that, with any type of resources, that's also a great opportunity to get involved in the community and help build a grassroots, opportunity that's going to really help empower the community. Because your church is not only going to be a church, it's also going to be a resource community for the community, correct?
Yeah, it's mostly a resource community.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the show, Pastor Q.
All right.
Thank you.
Right on.
Yeah.
Listen to Skid